Another method for bringing one scene into another is called XREF, and that's an external reference. This is helpful especially when you have very heavy assets, when you have scene files that take up a lot of space on disk. Let's say I have a loft and I've got lots and lots of objects in that scene, and I need to make many versions of it. Every time I make a change to a scene, I really should save out a new version. If my scene is like 100 megabytes, and then I need to save out 10 versions, suddenly I've used up a gigabyte of space on my hard drive. Additionally, if I want to change one part of the scene, then it's kind of a little bit inconvenient if everything's all in one scene. XREFs, or external references, are a helpful tool because what it allows you to do is have a whole bunch of separate scene files that then get loaded into a master scene file. And that way, your master scene file is pretty small, but it references all these other scenes. So if you save a different version of your master scene, you're not increasing your hard disk space usage by very much. And additionally, XREFs make it easier for you to change just one part of your scene because you can change the original XREF document without altering your master scene. I've got a scene here that's pretty blank. All that's in here really is just some grid settings. There's nothing really more in here. It's pretty blank. And I'm going to reference in a bunch of parts of the apartment. Let's do that. Go up to the application button once again. And this time we want to go to References. Hover your mouse. Don't click on it. And you'll see some items popping up on the side. You want to choose XREF Objects, not XREF Scene. XREF Scene is an older version of it. I want to click on XREF Objects. Then we get the XREF Objects dialog opening up. Up here at the top is going to be a list of all the scenes that you've referenced. And at the bottom is going to be a list of all of the assets that are included in that scene. In other words, each model will be listed here. To create an XREF, click on the button on the upper left-hand corner, Create XREF Record from File. And then you want to navigate. And you'll see in my current project's scenes folder, I've got a subfolder labeled XREFs. And that's a good way to organize things. Keep the XREFs in a separate folder. I'll drill down into there, and I'll just choose the walls, and then click Open. And we see walls listed here. And it's kind of weird. It looks like it's selected. It's highlighted, but it's not actually highlighted. If you click on it, then it's actually selected. And we can see that these are all the various objects that are being imported or XREF'd in. And it's not just the objects, by the way, it's materials as well. You can see there's a listing here of whether each one of these is an object or a material. Let's do another one. Go ahead and click to create another XREF record. We're taken back to that same Scenes XREFs folder, and I can bring in some doors and windows. Here we go, doors and windows. Click Open. And once again, we can select that and we can see what's been XREF'd in. And if we look in our scene, we can see that we've got some actual windows. Press the F3 key. Got some windows there. And it's actually got a transparent material on it too. And I can just continue that process, XREFing all these different scenes into this current master scene. Click on that button, and I can choose something else like we've got a whole living room set. Click Open. And this time I get a duplicate material name dialog, similar to what we saw in the last movie. However, this one's a bit more of an issue that we need to pay attention to. XREF'd materials in 3ds Max are kind of problematic. And when you first XREF a bunch of objects in, it'll look like you have a bunch of different materials that are shared among objects. In other words, I might have 10 objects that share the same material. That's a fake out when you first import all these XREFs in. But in reality, the truth is that when the scene gets loaded the next time, each one of those XREF scenes is going to bring its own materials with it. And even if they have identical names, they will be different materials. It's really quite confusing. And what this dialog is asking us is currently, do we want to use the version of the material that has this name that already exists in the scene? Or do we want to use the version of the material that's coming in with the selected XREF? Well, I've experimented with this and taken copious notes, and I've determined that the only safe thing to do is to click Apply to All Duplicates and then choose Use Merged Material. If you don't use this option here, then all sorts of difficulties may ensue, including links to materials getting broken, or if you change the material in the original XREF, it doesn't update in your master scene, and really it's very problematic. So the answer here is to always use the merged material. Click on that. Okay, we've XREF'd a few things in, so let's take a look at what we've got. We can go over to a perspective view and maximize that with Alt-W and just navigate around and see what we've brought in here. So here's our whole living room set. If you want, you can go ahead and XREF all the rest of those scenes in. Once you've finished, you definitely want to save this master scene. And then when you open it the next time, all the materials will be unique to each XREF. I do recommend that you do it that way. XREF everything in, save the master scene, shut down 3ds Max or just simply reset it, and then load the master scene in again, and then all the XREFs and their materials will come in correctly. All right, so that's a little bit of weirdness, but it's worth the weirdness because now we have a lot more ability to, for example, edit some of these assets external to this scene, and we have a lot more power in terms of versioning. We don't have to worry so much about taking up disk space, and we can have as many versions of this master scene as we need. That's a brief intro to how to use XREFs in 3ds Max.